please remember, our Kamayan will be on February 28th. Anyway, siguro naman marami sa inyo nasa Philippine Environment Summit. No? So moving on, our next speaker who will enlighten us about the blue carbon ecosystems, another very informative ano na naman to, talk, is a senior leader in conservation with more than 20 years experience in establishing and successfully implementing programs that have contributed to sustainable natural resource management in the Philippines. She has worked with communities in both marine and terrestrial protected areas in the Philippines, as well as with the Philippine Department of Environment and Natural Resources. She has also contributed to a number of environmental bills and laws under the Senate Committee on Environment in the Philippines. She currently leads the Zoological Society of London, or ZSL's Philippine program as country director. She is accountable for developing and implementing strategy that aligns with ZSL's global ambition, as well as enhancing the local capability and operational efficiency that will successfully contribute to achieving strategic outcomes. Friends, please welcome Edwina Garchitorena. Good afternoon.
Hi. Oh, that's a
Good
surprise.
afternoon.
Sorry, I just literally just joined. So, apologies, and I'm having some technical difficulties. So, I unfortunately can't bring my slide deck up. But um I'm Edwina, excuse me, Garchitorena, and I lead the country program of ZSL in the Philippines. As I'm sure all know, um, our lead scientist is Dr. Georgine Primavera, and we have uh, been focusing on mangroves and coastal restoration and conservation for a number of years. I think at this point we're over 15 years in the business of mangrove conservation. Um, what we're realizing what we have realized, of course, and documented in the past, is that mangrove and seagrass ecosystems contribute a lot in terms of ecosystem services. There's, of course, protection from storms, dissipation of wave energy. We also have documented mm, uh, increased production, fisheries production, when mangroves and seagrass beds are healthy, along with coral reefs, of course. Uh, there are there are documented interconnectivities between mangrove ecosystems, seagrass beds, and coral reefs in terms of how they support different species of fish and shellfish, which of course contribute to food security. There are a number of other ecosystem services, but most recently, the spotlight and the has really been on blue carbon. Now, the question always that I'm asked is, what's blue carbon, and is it different from terrestrial carbon or forest carbon? Um, and really, in the end, of course, when you're talking about sequestration and climate mitigation, it's the same carbon that we're talking about. Um, but what we do know, and there have been studies that have recorded this, blue carbon ecosystems such as mangroves, seagrass beds, and marshes and wetlands not only sequester more carbon than equivalent terrestrial ecosystems like forests, they also they can capture more carbon and also hold it for a longer period of time. So there are studies that show up to uh, uh, up to, I think that carbon ecosystems can store up to 5 times more carbon than terrestrial terrestrial ecosystems like forests. And so the interest of ZSL has been really in including blue carbon as part of the ecosystem services that mangroves deliver and that seagrass beds deliver. And we're very interested in studying that, developing science for that, and also uh, influencing policy. So what I will present on the at the conference is basically what we've been doing to quantify blue carbon capture in blue carbon ecosystems, and also uh, we will explain how uh, the blue carbon policy is in development in the Philippines, uh, and most importantly, of course, the message, and I'm sure all of you who've known Dr. Jean for a very long time, the message is, of course, that while there is an option, maybe a later option for financing in blue carbon ecosystems, as there is in terrestrial carbon ecosystems or forest systems, the the initial focus of policy and science must be on conservation, restoration, and conservation of these blue carbon ecosystems. There are challenges in the Philippines that make financing from blue carbon offsets or credits not yet ideal or accessible, which in the future we hope to change. But currently, there is a great need still to discuss, to influence the way mangroves and seagrass beds are used, conserved, rehabilitated, and restored, so that in the future, perhaps we can actually utilize them as well for blue carbon finance. So I will stop there because I don't want to reveal everything before the conference. But if there are any questions, please feel free to ask or chat or email me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ma'am Edwina Gatchitorena. Very, very interesting. I think you really leave a lot of excitement for everyone to, parang ma-excite pa kami kung ano yung malalaman namin sa paparating na Fifth Environmental Summit. And, blue carbon economy and talk about blue carbon is something that has also to deal with yung pinag-uusapan natin na to deal with the floods, itong tinatawag natin na sustainable storm water management. So, very, very interesting. Marie, you're there? Yan. So let's proceed to our next speaker. Siyempre, I know yung iba sa inyo marami ng tanong, but hold up your horses. We will be having an open forum later on. For now, let's proceed to our next speaker who will be talking about energy audit and greenhouse gas emissions inventory of Bataan Peninsula State University. Very interesting topic. Our speaker is a mechanical engineer currently taking his PhD study at the La Salle University. He is an associate professor at Bataan Peninsula State University and a co-founder of a climate tech startup. Wow, very, very interesting. He has led various projects and mentors other startups related to environmental sustainability. Fellow environmental advocates, let's welcome Don William Martinez, Assistant Professor, Bataan Peninsula State University. Good afternoon po, mga kalikasang hapon.
Good afternoon po everyone.
Good afternoon.
So again, I'm Dan. So share ko lang yung screen for the presentation. So this is my presentation. It's actually one of our previous work in Bataan Peninsula State University. So medyo luma na yung study, but I think I'll discuss more on the methods used in doing this research. So it's energy audit and greenhouse gas emission inventory in my university, Bataan Peninsula State University. So actually this is one of the projects funded by CHED, Institutional Development Grant. So medyo technical po for an engineer yung discussions, but I'll try to uh, discuss it with more insights instead of the technicalities of the method. So in this presentation, I will try to present the detailed methods in conducting the GHG emission inventory of BPSU main campus. Also, I will differentiate the presented methods from the usual GHG emission inventory calculations we have. So I think yung Climate Change Commission, they have a standard toolkit for calculating GHG emissions, as well as ako ang bukas, meron din silang GHG emission toolkit, but it's more on the community level. My method is for universities. So yeah, there's a different application. And syempre, to share the challenges, opportunities, and recommendations in adopting the proposed method. So for context, Bataan Peninsula State University main campus is located in Balanga City, Bataan, in Central Luzon. So there's a total land area of 46,000 square meters, around 4 hectares. So medyo maliit lang po yung campus. So our population is around 6,000 employees and students. So our university operates in 2 semesters. So the first semester usually right now it's January to first semester is August to December, and January to May is the second semester. Yeah, just to give you context. So the general method we used for this study is we did a campus-wide GHG emissions inventory. So meron po tayong dalawang scope pagdating sa emissions inventory. Ay, tatlo actually. That's Scope 1, yung direct emissions. Scope 2, the indirect emissions. And Scope 3, yung indirect emissions from other sources. So for our study, we focus more on the Scope 1 and Scope 2 lang. But we tried to do Scope 3. Mas challenging lang din talaga siya. But I'll give you an overview later kung paano namin siya tinry gawin. And aside from the campus-wide GHG emissions, we also did a building scale GHG emissions. For the building scale GHG emissions, we use 2 methods. So we have the based on the electricity consumption, which is ito yung pinaka-common method in GHG emissions inventory, yung when you look at your electricity bill. And another is based on equipment audit. So this is another method of doing emissions inventory, pero mas matrabaho lang siya. So I'll give some insights about the different methods. So first, we have the campus-wide GHG emissions inventory. So for Scope 1 or direct emission, we focus on the vehicles used by our university. So we have this data, we gather this data. So there are 6 vehicles used by the campus. So ito yung year of acquisition nila, and we also noted the type of fuel they used. Then the total distance traveled based sa odometer reading. So we relied solely on the odometer reading para makuha po yung data on the total distance traveled. So yan po yung initial data na kailangan. So for the calculation, we use this formula wherein we multiply the total fuel consumption by emission factors. So emission factors is taken from the IPCC 2006 guideline. So, and in the emissions factor, we factor in yung carbon dioxide emission, the methane, and the nitrous oxide. So, we multiply yung CH4 by 56 and yung emission factor ng nitrous oxide by 280 para makuha po natin yung emissions in terms of CO2 equivalent. So, yeah. So, yung consumption ng fuel, so paano po namin siya kinompute? So, kinompute namin siya based on the odometer reading. So, sa odometer reading, so yung distance na indicated doon multiplied by the rate of fuel consumption of the vehicle. So from here, we can use literature review para malaman or specs sa sasakyan kung gaano kalakas yung konsumo ng fuel niya every kilometer traveled. And then, of course, the heating value of the fuel. In this case, we have diesel, di ba? Diesel powered siya. So, compared to the usual GHG emissions inventory na ginagawa, usually naka-base siya sa kilometers. So, for example, you put in ilang kilometers ang na-travel and then magbibigay siya ng estimated amount ng GHG emissions. For us, we want it to be uh, more specific, di ba? As close as possible to the true value by looking at the actual distance traveled as well as doon sa fuel consumption. So, ang challenge lang namin in this type of method is we only have two data, the year of acquisition and the total distance traveled. So, for example, if I want to know the emission in a year, i-divide ko lang si total distance by the age of the vehicle, which is a very rough assumption. So, my suggestions, if we want to make an inventory of the direct emission from vehicles owned by the university or our companies, every year or every month, siguro dapat nilista natin kung gaano kalayo yung tina-travel na distance. Para we have a more detailed information on the GHG emissions. Kasi it's not equal lang din naman na yung travel mo ng January is equal to February. So, I made this suggestions din sa university namin that yung driver or personnel every day, ilalag lang kung gaano kalayo or ano yung reading sa odometer para we can track ilan yung distance na travel per unit time and we can appropriately measure the GHG emission per day, per month, and per year. So this is my insight in using this kind of inventory. Yan. So another is scope 2 or indirect emission, campus-wide GHG emissions inventory. So actually, we only have electricity bills as our basis for the emissions inventory. So yun yung available data. And I think most companies din naman and university, we only have our electricity bill as basis for emission accounting or inventory. So doon, kinuha lang namin yung price and then we studied the bill, kinuha namin effective rate ng electricity. And ang challenge lang din pag we base on the bills kasi minsan may mga like in our case, there are months na yung electricity provider nagbibigay ng discount. So meaning, binabawasan ng kaunting amount yung bill. And if that is the case naman, nababawasan yung computation mo ng na-consume na electricity. So it will perhaps bring down yung calculated emission natin. So anyway, so having computed for our electricity consumption based on our electricity bill, we devised a formula for calculating our emission. Actually, most toolkit na ginagamit for inventory, you just provide the amount of electricity consumed and then may emission factor lang. But in our case, we want to consider specifically yung type ng fuel and yung share ng fuel. Kasi for example, you have the same amount of electricity consumption 2023 and same ng 2024. But it's possible na magkaiba ang amount of GHG emissions mo. Kasi it will depend on the electricity mix of your grid. For example, in Bataan, we have the Luzon grid. So, I think every quarter or every year, nagre-release ng data si DOE on how much percentage of our electricity came from coal, came from gas fuel, came from hydro. So, yeah. So, with our calculations, we want to account for the variation in the electricity mix or the share of the fuel as well as the type of fuel. And also, in-account din namin dito yung average fuel consumption of each fuel type. For example, for coal, um, we look at what type of power plants we have here in, for example, in Luzon. What type of power plants ang ginagamit and what type of technology. Kasi different power plants, different kinds of technology, different kinds of fuel, you have different kinds of coal. So iba-iba din sila ng emissions factor. So for example, if you use sub-bituminous or lignite or compared to sub-bituminous, for example, mas mataas ang emissions niya. So, and also the heating value. So, yung mga power plants din na nagsusupply ng kuryente, they have reports then of their fuel consumption as well as the heating value. So if you look at our formula, mas gusto naming detailed yung computations, mas ano siya, mas realistic compared to the usual na you just plug in the energy and then use the ano din eh, it's based then on the technology eh. For example, iba ang emission factor for for US, iba ang emission factor for the Philippines, for Korea, kasi we're using different types of um, energy generation, electricity generation technologies. So, sa amin, we want to do the calculations as local as possible. So, yeah. And then, the total GHG emissions campus-wide is just equivalent to the direct emissions plus the indirect emissions from Scope 1 and Scope 2. So, Scope 3 is not yet included here. So, based on this method and formula, this is our reported emissions of our campus from 2017 to 2022. So, this is before the pandemic. So, you can see na yung peak consumption namin was in August 2018. And this is December 2018. Probably this is sem break na to, Christmas break. So mas kaunti ang nasa campus gumagamit ng electricity. And we can also see yung second semester 2020. Ito yung onset ng pandemic. So biglang baba ng electricity consumption during this time. And for the building scale, GHG emissions inventory, we only measured, of course, the indirect emission lang. Wala naman direct emission si building. So, meron lang kaming indirect emission. So, in this particular method, we did an equipment inventory of all equipment, electricity consuming devices in our classrooms, in our facilities. So, ito yung example inventory na ginawa namin. So, nandito, for example, the building is NCA building, first floor. Meron kaming rooms, and then ilan yung equipment, light bulb, AC unit, computer set, printers, televisions, yung quantity, then binabasa din namin yung rating niya. And then, ang important is, we have an estimated time of operation. Kasi yun yung magiging basis natin on calculating the electricity consumption. So we did this kind of summary for the entire building, and we use this formula. So the formula is also similar to the first one sa campus-wide, but dito we are particular in the computation of the electricity consumption. So the EC. So it is equal to, for example, the electricity consumption will be per equipment. For example, ano yung electricity consumption of AC units, then yung rating ng equipment, then operation time. So ito yung, this is a result of the equipment audit and then emissions inventory. So we were able to calculate the electricity consumption for use for lighting, for cooling, and other equipment. So what's the benefit of doing this kind of equipment audit compared to the usual na magbabase lang sa bill? The difference is we can actually decompose kung saan nanggagaling yung majority ng emissions natin. Like for example, in this case, more than 90% of our electricity consumption and GHG emission uh, came from cooling equipment or our AC units. Diba? So with that knowledge, we can then strategize on how to potentially reduce your energy consumption and then your GHG emission. Oh, we're using our air conditioning units too much. So probably we can set a time that parang I suggested na we only open the AC unit at 9 a.m. since yung heat or comfort at 8 a.m. I think it's still um tolerable pa naman, 'di ba? Or and then for example, during this time, December, January, medyo malamig. So we can set a guideline na okay, we should limit our AC use from 10 a.m. lang to 4 p.m. Since 4 p.m. pagabi, pwedeng we can open our doors or windows na lang for natural ventilation. So we can implement those kind of policy in our university or companies per dapat may basis. And one basis could be a GHG emission inventory where we can see what kind of equipment yung pwede nating i-limit yung consumption nila. And one thing about doing this building scale GHG emission inventory is it can be validated. It's a way of validating. Kasi if you can see in our study, we did a campus-wide emission inventory. Then we also did a building scale emission inventory. So there are two different methods, one based on electricity bill and one based on equipment audit. So if we compare the results of the two methods, they should at least be equal. Pag equal siya or close to being equal, and then most likely we did the right method, we did the right equipment audit ng GHG emissions inventory. Kasi you're using two methods and then nag-equal siya. Yeah, so mas validated yung ginagawa natin GHG emissions audit. But mas matrabaho lang siya since mas kailangan natin ng maraming time to do the equipment audit. So last na lang din, so additional case, other indirect emission, we also tried to count our emission from other indirect emission, particularly yung transportation ng students from their home to the campus. So we did an initial survey of 65 students. So the population ng campus is 6,000. So we did survey of 65 lang. They answered the survey kung yung travel nila, yung frequency, and then we were able to log a data. For example, using tricycle, gaano ka haba or karami yung tina-travel ng student per day using bus and using jeepney from different points in our province. Though meron kaming naging limitation dito. Kasi, for example, okay, 14,000 kilometers yung the total travel ng 65 students in one day sa commute nila. But we should also account na itong 14,000 na to ay kailangan paghatian ng, for example, ilan ba yung capacity nung bus. So for example, 40. So kailangan pa siya i-divide into 40. So yun lang yung mas challenging lang din when doing some indirect emissions. We have to consider mass transportation, di ba? For example, for tricycle, ano yung usual capacity niya? Pwedeng 2 or 3. Sa jeep, it's around 21. So, yeah. So for the computation, it's also similar with how we calculated yung sa direct emissions from vehicles. So yun. So we were not able to generate a result dito sa under indirect emissions. It's mas complicated siya and mas marami kami kailangan consider. But this is our suggested method. So I will also be in the environment summit. So I will talk more about this method and strategies on how to do this. So that is my presentation. So I hope I was able to communicate what we did in this particular project. So thank you
Thank
po.
you. Thank you, Dan Martinez. Medyo technical nga. That can't be helped. But I think you did well making it simpler to understand.
But very
Measuring,
interesting, right? I mean,
yeah,
some things are
measuring
technical,
emissions.
and we need that also, right?
Measuring emissions is important to
Indeed,
designing
indeed.
and evaluating mitigation measures effectively. So, thank you again, Dan. Our final speaker will talk about her experience attending a summit to give you an idea what to expect. She is the lead coordinator for various environmental projects, including the STEM students or STEM for STEM, which was funded by the Forest Foundation Philippines and Educacion PH. She is a graduate of Bachelor of Science in Environmental Science at Bulacan State University and was awarded the title of Magna Cum Laude, Best Thesis, and Outstanding Student Organization Leader. Throughout her academic career, she served in leadership roles in several environmental organizations. She was the president of the Environmental Science Society, or NVISOC, a university-based organization, and the vice president of the Philippine Association of Environmental Science Students, or PAS. I don't know how to say that. She also volunteered with the Environmental Committee of the Student Government at Bulacan State University. Currently, she is with the Department of Environment and Natural Resources as Project Development Officer. Let's give a warm welcome to Rafaela Ramos. Hi, Rafaela.
Thank you very much, Ma'am Marie, for that introduction. Grabe. I'll just wait for my presentation to be presented. Then I'll start because, yeah, okay. Thank you very much po, Green Convergence. And isang makakalikasang pagbati sa ating lahat. Magandang hapon sa ating organizers, facilitators, co-resource speakers, and attendees. Once again, I am Rafaela Ramos, and I currently work at the Department of Environment and Natural Resources, or DENR. And I am very honored to be here today and share my experience as one of the attendees of the fourth Philippine Environment Summit, which was held last February 21 to 23, 2023 at the Taal Vista Hotel in Tagaytay City. So next slide, please. At that time, for background, I was still a college student back then, taking up BS Environmental Science at Bulacan State University. And I was chosen as one of our university's delegates for the summit because I served as the president of an environmental organization called the Bulso Environmental Science Society. It is an organization um, uh, created for BS Environmental Science students studying in our university. And I attended the summit alongside with fellow officers, classmates, and professors. And they are all from Bulacan State University too. To be honest, I did not expect much when I first heard about the event kasi I have no idea kung ano yung summit, and I have never attended one before. But the fourth Philippine Environment Summit truly exceeded my expectations back then because there was never a dull moment during our 3 day stay. And of course, as a student, I cannot also believe that I got the chance to attend the summit because it was attended by professionals then. And aside from the participants, like the professionals and everyone, there were so many activities where you can participate. But of course, from a student's point of view, there were three activities that stood out the most for me, and these are it. So, next slide, please. Okay, so first were the exhibits. We had a fantastic time exploring each booth, from learning facts to playing games and even winning prizes. And of course, dahil very excited kami to explore the exhibit. It was a hit for everyone, especially sa mga kasama ko from Bulacan State University, regardless of age or profession, because I was with my co-officers, my classmates, and my professors, and we all enjoyed the exhibit, especially the booth from the Forest Foundation Philippines. Ang tagal naming nagstay doon. If I clearly remember, may mga nakasabay pa kaming naglalaro noon na supervisor na siya ng company nila, and then meron din professors ng ibang university, and ang saya lang because regardless of age and profession, we all enjoyed visiting the booths. And then ang dami ko rin syempre natutunan. And of course, ang dami kong nakuhang materials such as what are those books. I also have brochures, and then meron ding cards, and then we even got tote bags, ball pens, and shirts. Kaya kada araw, hindi talaga kami umuwi na walang laman yung mga bag namin because kulang na lang, iuwi namin yung buong booth. So sobrang dami naming nakukuha, and sobrang daming freebies and prizes from the booth. So totally we enjoyed playing games before the program starts, even sa lunchtime and sa uwian, nag-visit pa ulit kami. And of course, regarding the exhibits, we also like the fact that we could register as members of the local environmental organizations through their booths. Because whenever we visit the booths, nag-i-inquire kami ng membership, and all we had to do back then was to fill up the registration form and pay the registration fee if there's any, and then we're good to go. We don't have to go to their offices personally to register for membership, and it was super convenient for student participants like me kasi sama-sama na sila sa iisang area. And then next slide. And second were the breakout sessions. So in this slide, I included a picture of the breakout session, but hindi ako nag-include ng maraming pictures for each slide so that there will be a surprise factor for those who's going for the first time, diba? So each session offered a unique topic. Ayun yung sinasabi rin kanina na sobrang daming topics to choose from na hindi ka talaga mawawalan ng topic eh. Talagang ikaw pa yung mahihirapan mamili. And the good thing is we have the freedom to choose the ones that nag-pick dun sa interest namin. And personally, so kahit gusto kong puntahan lahat ng breakout sessions because I find all of them interesting naman, I chose topics that were new and also interesting to me, na mag-aalaw sa akin to, I guess, gain fresh knowledge and new perspectives. Because back then, that was back in 2023, I graduated in 2024, so I was still a college student, and the majority of the breakout sessions na pinili ko yata is about the youth. Like every single topic was connected to the youth because I really wanted to relate to the topics. And if you don't like those kind of topics, kunyari talagang you're a professional or you're a professor, ganyan, nasa academe or nasa company ka man, there are a lot of topics then related to those sectors. So it's really nice and convenient, diba? So I remember attending a breakout session where students presented their initiatives for the environment. I remember it is a project pa nga yung pinresent, and it was very inspiring for me at that time because environmental science student ako and officer din ako ng environmental organizations. So I really had a great time listening, nagtitake din ako ng notes, and then I also ask some of the speakers if I have questions or if I have something to clarify because I feel like pwede ko itong ma-apply sa sarili ko or dun sa organizations namin. And I also like the fact that there is an open forum in the end because ayun nga, nakakapagtanong ako or nakakapagkwentuhan yung mga resource speakers and also the participants. And during the breakout sessions, I also met a lot of students from different universities, and professionals from different companies, even national government agencies, that until now I get to interact or talk to from time to time. So aside from gaining knowledge from the breakout sessions, I also gained connections because of the summit, because in every breakout session, there's a chance na talagang iba-iba na yung makakasama mo per breakout session. So, aside from the knowledge, it's a good thing because nagkakaroon ng connections habang nandun kayo sa breakout sessions. And next slide, please. And certainly, last but certainly not the least, were the interactive activities. So, we initially thought na sa summit, nandun lang kami para makinig. So, we didn't even know na merong exhibits, and then hindi rin namin alam na throughout the summit, mabibigyan pala kami ng opportunity to collaborate with others and present our work in front of the group. So that was really a unique and, I should say, a valuable experience, especially for students and youth like us that time, because it's a once in a lifetime opportunity. Naalala ko, kinabahan pa ako noon kasi biglaan siyang activity. Pinamigay yung cartolina, pinamigay yung markers, and then parang ang instruction is, oh, you have to listen to the host, and then afterwards you can present your work. And then we're like, hala, kaya ba namin to? But then, ayun, sobrang saya lang because the encouragement that you get from other participants, and also yung support ng listeners, it was a very nice experience for us students. And we presented the work to different national government agencies and even private sector. So kahit na kinakabahan, I took it as an opportunity because it's a once in a lifetime experience talaga. So overall, my fellow attendees, and especially me, really enjoyed the fourth Philippine Environment Summit. And sobra daming natutunan talaga throughout the summit. And I personally applied everything, especially in our projects organization, because talagang na-instill sa akin yung knowledge and also the practices. And of course, in my everyday life then. And I have also started to think more carefully about my decisions and actions. And as I aspire to become a responsible citizen for the betterment of the environment, syempre, hindi ko kinalimutan na yung learnings na nakuha ko from the summit. Yung mga simpleng bagay, tulad ng yung pagtatapon sa tamang basurahan, yung pagbabaon lang ng sarili mong baonan, yung mga ganong kind of things na it may seem simple and cliche, but yung mga simple ways na yun, if you're consistent into practicing those things, di ba? Talagang malaki din yung impact niya. And I hope na mas marami ding kabataan maging involved sa ganitong kind of events, because personally, I had a good time, and also up until now, I consider my attendance sa fourth Philippine Environment Summit as one of my memorable events sa aking buhay. And again, it was such an honor to be a part of such an impactful event. And of course, if I were given the chance to attend again, I wouldn't hesitate for a second. Like, parang nasa Iloilo, di ba? But, ayun, I hope that the fifth Environment Summit will inspire more youth like me. And I hope na mas marami pa rin akong academe din na makita doon. Lagit lagi para sa kalikasan. And thank you for listening, and God bless us all.
Thank you very much, Rafaela. You were such a pleasure to listen to. Nakakatuwa. You're right, whatever age you are, whatever sector you come from, business, academe, church, government, there's something for each of you in the summit, and everyone enjoys it. Experience ko talaga yung namamangha ako na every time I walk around, everybody's smiling. Nakakatuwa yun, alam mo yun? It lifts up your spirit. So,
At saka we
Rafaela,
would, no, Miss Marie, we would like to believe that at least somehow, no, Rafaela, the Fourth Philippine Environmental Summit help you in, having your career right now in the DENR, di ba? Iba yung background na nandun ka sa summit kasi ang daming inputs, ang daming solutions, and when you're in the DNR, NR, you're facing a lot of issues and problems regarding the environment. So hopefully nakatulong yung Philippine Environmental Summit.
yeah, thank you, Daniel. Ay, Rafaela. Daniel, thank you so much for that sharing.